Hey, what is going on, guys? Today I am sharing with you F1 cars throughout the decades. We are going to be having a car from every single decade of Formula One on here. We even double dip on a couple decades where there were some massive rule changes, starting all the way back in 1950 when our beloved sport was born. And of course, along the way, I'll briefly touch on the rule changes and just the evolution of F1 cars as we go down the line. It should be a super fun video and a ton of fantastic mods as well. So without further ado, let's start all the way back in 1950. And that would be the Alfa Romeo 158 Alfetta, ladies and gentlemen. This car has 258 brake horsepower, 229 newton meters of torque. It weighs 710 kilograms. If there was ever a time when F1 cars were literally tubs full of gasoline, then this would be it. This is also a very unique time in F1 because the cars were front engine. So these things in a way were kind of technically like GT cars if you think about it. And this car did take the top spot at the first ever F1 GP in the beautiful historic Silverstone. The mod itself is brought to us by Acetopedia. It is a fantastic mod, and yeah, on these bicycle tires and drum brakes, this thing is a lot of fun. So I highly recommend you check it out. You could find it in the link in the description below. Next up, we move to the late 60s, more specifically 1967 for the Ferrari 312/67. This was when the F1 engineers kind of had an epiphany. The first one was to put the engine in the back, and the second one was to get off of the bicycle tires and actually get some thick boys on the car. So that's exactly what they did, and my god, the speed difference in both straight line and especially through the corners in this, 17 years is absolutely astronomical. 390 brake horsepower, 548 kilograms of weight. This thing is an absolute beast. It is also surprisingly grippy, especially for its time. It has no aero whatsoever. This was definitely Enzo Ferrari's era of aerodynamics are for people who can't build engines. So yeah, super fun era of F1, and I highly recommend you check it out. You can find it in the link in the description below. Next up, we move to 1975 for the Surtees TS16. This was when they decided that aero was actually somewhat important. So this is when you're going to start to see the front wings coming on, the rear wings, as well as this is, as one of my good sim racing friends and fantastic content creator Burkhart put it, the chimney era of F1, because these things have massive air boxes. 466 brake horsepower, 332 newton meters of torque. It all weighs 600 kilograms. This is where you can definitely see the power going up as well as the weight going down. And of course, the aero helping this thing go super quick through the corners. You can find this one in the link in the description below. Next up, we move to the 80s, specifically 1988. And the 80s, in my opinion, were the most interesting decade for Formula One, because you had like two very different metas, and I think it's just very interesting how the tides turned. Of course, you started out the 80s with the insane ground effect cars, and after it was banned, you got into the turbo cars, where the McLaren MP4 with the Honda power unit absolutely dominated. And of course, this era is also just synonymous with Ayrton Senna. Pretty much all but the final car for the rest of this list are made by the guys over at VRC as well. They make some fantastic cars, and it is still hard to believe that all of these are for free. 675 brake horsepower, but it's getting lighter with that 540 kilograms and all the turbo power as well. This thing is a beast. Next up, we move to the 90s. Only four years, 88, 89, 90, 91, 4 years after the last car we just covered. This is the Jordan 191, and this thing is, of course, the Michael Schumacher car. This is where he made his F1 debut in the Jordan 191 at Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix. And this thing is just a beast. And if anything is tied to Michael Schumacher's name, you know it is going to be an infamous car. And this thing not only drives like one, but it has the looks of it as well. The beautiful green and blue livery, the body lines of this car. Overall, I just love this thing so much. The power and weight, though, didn't really change, at least this early in the 90s. So an interesting little bit where the cars kind of stagnated. The aero did get a bit more complex, though, so this is when we really started to see the speed through the corners kick in. Next up, we have our first double dip decade on the list. This is 1997, the Ferrari F310B. This is, of course, a VRC car, and this is also where these things got, of course, a lot more complex with their aero, but also got a nice little bump in power. All the way up to 743 brake horsepower. It still weighs around the 500 kilogram mark, but this thing just looks like a beast. It's on those slick Goodyear tires, and overall, it's a Ferrari, man. This was Michael Schumacher's car. This was Eddie Irvine's car. This thing is just super cool. Sadly, though, it did not win the championship. It came second and third, though, with Schumacher and Irvine. Next up, we move to the 2000s with a very special year for myself as well, 2005, because that was the year I was born. I feel like I just made some of you feel very old. But this is when we did slowly start to see F1 take its more modern day shape. This thing was actually slower than the McLaren, but Fernando Alonso and Giancarlo Fisichella wheeled this thing to win the Constructors' Championship, and of course, Fernando Alonso winning his first of 2 World Championships. This car also has the beautiful and forever legendary Mild 7 livery on it, so you got the yellow, you got the blue, it all just looks so cool. This is also the grooved tire era, and the final year with the V10 engines before they swapped to the V8s for the 2006 season. But we now double dip once again. We are now up to 2009 when the real modern day F1, at least the pre-2017 era, really took shape. And this is, of course, the year of Braun GP, the one-hit wonder with their super innovative balloon diffuser. Also, what's a really cool note is this was the final year, and I think the first year, when most teams used wheel covers, so very applicable to 2022, where all the cars will have wheel covers now, both the front and rear wheels. In 2009, they just put them on the front, at least most teams. But sadly, we don't have the Braun here in Assetto. We do have the Williams FW31, though. Still a beautiful looking machine, and you can really start to see modern day F1 cars slowly starting to take their shape here. And overall, just a really beautiful era, I think. The more letterbox style wings, in my opinion. But now finally we jump up to the current engine era, at least. I don't think they're calling 2022 the turbo hybrid era anymore, which is a little weird since they still have turbo hybrid engines. But anyway, this is the 2015 Williams FW37. This was the second year of the turbo hybrid cars. The first time they really had like full electric capabilities. They had KERS in the early 2010s, but this is like full on hybrid powered, and of course, bringing the turbos back as well was a big deal. And of course, you can't say the turbo hybrid era without talking about the Mercedes, their innovative split turbo, like it was like half and half. I don't know the full like design of it. There's probably one of you who do. But this Williams was powered by the beastly Mercedes engine. And if 2015, it was still a beast. A little less so than 2014 because people caught up, but definitely still the most dominant. And finally, we have our least year jump. We moved to 2017 for the RSS Formula Hybrid 2017. This isn't like an actual car. It's just like a non-copyright car. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like its own design. It looks like it is based off of the Renault a little bit, at least with the steering wheel. They do have their 2018 car for free, but a couple months ago, this thing did get updated to basically be like their modern day quality. So this thing is a lot better than the 2018 car, so that's why I'm putting it here instead of that. I do hope in the future that they do release maybe like their 2019 or 2020 car for free, but right now, as of the making of this video, this is the best, newest car that's a free option. But yeah, minus the halo, this is pretty much the modern era of F1, excluding 2022. 980 brake horsepower, turbo hybrid, all of the complex aero goodness. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. If you did enjoy, a like and a sub would mean a lot. And if you did learn anything maybe about F1 through the decades from this video, then yeah, I'm glad I could teach you. But there's also a lot that I need to learn myself. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Tomorrow is my photorealistic settings video. Stuff got crunched. I'm sorry about the day delay, but I promise you, for all of you who are super excited for it, it will be worth it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys.